name is Maxim Maximich. And I have a story for you, my friend. You see, many people do not understand the course of events that led to the current political state in Europe. But sit down, my brother. I'm going to tell you a very long story. A story that speaks only one language. The language of war, blood. See, Varsh, in the year of our Lord, 1856, the Empire had declared war on the Ottomans to protect the rights of the Orthodox people within Palestine. In just 3 months, almost all of Europe had declared war on Russia. What they called the Crimean War had begun. After months and months of bitter fighting, it looked like we were going to lose. But the Tsar did some form of trickery or maneuvering, whatever they call it, and got the help of the Austrians. With them, they managed to push back the Allied advance. Pushed so far in, we made it to Turkey, liberated the Balkans even, took more land since the Siberian conquest back in the 16th century, believe. We liberated them, the people of the Balkans. These people, these peasants, more than anything, have been suffering under Ottoman rule. The international community called us monsters, warmongers. No, we are liberators of a dying land. Our Slavic, our Orthodox brothers, all of us have been suffering under the cruel, oppressive oak of the Turks. And we liberated them. The British, the French, all of them would stand against us. The Italians joined on the opposite sides and switched once they realized ours was a Christian duty. We were serving the people of God. I am sorry. I am getting ahead of myself. You see, my friend, once this happened, once we won the war in Crimea, things began to change. I can feel a shift on Russia's destiny. You see, the Germans, the Prussians, Saxons, Bavarians, all of them became afraid of our motherland's potential, the land we've taken, and they united into one state. They called themselves the German Empire. They fought the French and won. Everybody is praising them. The British, after they lost their war in Crimea, had hated the French so much they started supporting the Germans. But they would never. No country would ever support us. What did we do wrong? We defended our people. Worse yet, the French, I pity them. They suffered cruelly under the German rule. The Prussians had grown to occupy Paris, and eventually they would leave, but at the cost of lots of French lives. Eventually, however, things would get better for their country. They would have a revolution against their leader and call themselves something like the beacon of democracy. Very strange, to say the least. Tell me they did this as a way to oppose the British and try to get them to kick out their monarchy as well. However, Britain never got rid of their king, well, at least not yet. Instead, they relegated the power of the monarchy, even more democratic than it used to be at that point. It was a sad sight, truth be told. And tradition and everything was lost to the British people. They lost their minds, after all. Losing a war to backward savages, as they called us in Crimea, the scum. But what do you expect from them? Later on, however, it is very sad to think about. We took so much land from the French while they were going through this. Us and the Austrians as well. Hell, when all this was happening, we started annexing some regions in the Middle East that didn't even bother us. Our empire grew to be the strongest nation on earth. So did the Austrians, or the British and French lag behind. But in the background, all of us know, these Prussians, these newly united Germans, they would bring about the end of our empire. So, Austria, looking to consolidate power in Europa, they hail a meeting with a bunch of different people and explain to them their ideas. From what I remember, the French, the Italians, us, we all agreed to form an alliance. We called ourselves the Central Powers because our meeting was held in Austria, which is in Central Europe. I never knew much of what the other side was planning. However, I can clearly see that Britain and Prussia were becoming closer and closer as years gone by. The Prussians had quite advanced industry. They had produced technological wonders, far beyond that expected of most of us in the industrial stage of our countries. For example, they produced these pistols, not revolvers necessarily, but they were, as they call it, semi-automatic. They could fire off many shots without the clicking of a hammer. They looked advanced, more futuristic than anything we had. I'm rambling on, I do apologize. Back onto the topic, towarzysz. The Americans. The Americans had a civil war going on for about a year. We went through a lot during this time. The Finns had suffered terribly. And yet, the Empire had, for some complex and strange reason, declared war on the Americans. The full story I will tell you now, but from the point of view of the common man, it's ridiculous. They dragged us in there for no reason. You see, the Confederate leader, Jefferson Davis, I believe his name is, he believed he was going to lose the war, and so he sent a letter to the French. He asked for their backing and support in the war, saying that because he had been democratically elected, he was America's true leader. The French believed this brilliant and blatant lie. They marched in. They declared war on the Union of America. And the British, in response, declared war on the French. Very strange, if I had to say. I guess old habits die hard, huh? As well as the Austrians wanted to support the French because of our Central Powers alliance and joined up. And so we had to join up and help them. Now, I never made it to the front in America, and from what I heard, not many Russians actually did. Our war continued with the Ottomans. We advanced from Constantinople. Our goal was to try and retake most of all the land they had taken. Our empire fought alongside Christians, Muslims, Jews, Tartars, pagans, anybody we can to destroy the grip of the Ottoman Empire. However, on the American front, things were different. There was no heroic idea of a holy war. The men they sent over were disgraced men. Officers and generals who had done badly by the Tsar. Some of them officers who were sent to Siberia. Later on, however, I would find out more about the other sides. That is, after all, the reason I'm telling this story. From what I hear, the British held a blockade on the American front to prevent any French troops from landing in. But, apparently, long before the war, the Americans had sold Navy ships to the Austro-Hungarians, and so the Austrian ships, along with the French ones, had broken through the British blockade. This allowed the Austrians and French to mount a full offensive coming in to support the southern troops. Along with apparently a German offensive into France, which had gone, I'm not too sure, truth be told. French sources tell me that they beat back the Prussians easily, but Prussian sources say that they just stormed into Paris once again. Odd, however. But one thing is for certain that I've learned. The Prussians sent over an elite unit of mostly shock infantry to America. They called them the Stormtrooper. They say that they developed a type of machine gun that is hand-mounted and automatic. It takes pistol ammunition, the same one used by their semi-automatic pistols. The Germans used this to very good effect, wiping out most of most of the Central Powers troops in the area that they would storm into. However, technological advances is no match for the will of God and the might of Mother Russia. Eventually, Russia would fall, and Britain next with it. However, one foe remained, the Americans. They held on long. But from what I heard, an army of Cossacks and Austrian troops had surrounded the capital city, the presidential palace. They had planted the flag of the motherland onto their corrupt and decadent capital. That was a heroic day, like no other. The American president had gone into exile, you see. Canada had actually fought back most advances by all troops, and so Canada, of all places, was the seat of both the American and the British government after the war. They all fled there, split up into little principalities. Eventually, however, from what I heard, things in Canada got heated pretty fast. There was a revolution of some kind, and a power that they now know as the United Colonies has taken over. They claim to be the heirs to the American, British, and Canadian governments, however that works. Interesting people nonetheless. Their leader, Samuel Wilson, they call him. A very mysterious man. Shrouded in mystery is his past, but we do know that he served in the British Special Forces, or Special Air Service. They use what was called you see the Varsha. The Germans had developed a special weapon during this war to bombard French positions in French and Austrian cities. They called it the Zeppelin. It was a hot air balloon that they could mount troops onto, not artillery cannons. Hard to penetrate as well. And this, combined with little British trickery, allowed them to use it for special forces operations. An interesting concept our motherland would later adapt. However, this almost resulted in the end of the war on the Allied side, until the Austrians managed to capture the planes for one, build their own, and that's how they captured Berlin. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The United Colonies is a very suspicious land. They seem to pride themselves on ideas of democracy and honor, and yet for some reason they do not share the secret information they have on weapon developing. How cruel of them not to share it with God's own country. But what about God's own country? You see, my friends, Austria, Russia, and Italy, the three countries that had played the biggest role in defeating the Allied scum during the war, had united to a single entity. We called ourselves Holy Rome, or New Holy Rome. You see it, Varsha. Before this, the Austrians and us called ourselves the Holy League, and later on the Italians joined. Some confusion would have happened, no doubt, but it was amazing. Our capital was in Constantinople, and the people ruled from this as equals. Austrian did not rule over Russian, Russian did not rule over Italian, Greek did not rule over anybody. We were all united under God. However, I suppose I should give also a report on what has happened in the Asiatic countries. They say that the Entente powers, that is Britain, Germany, and the Americans, had at one point tried to recruit the Japanese to help them in their war with us by invading Siberia. From what I hear, however, the Japanese did not favor the Americans too much, and something occurred. I do not know much about it, but I would definitely like to research more on it. Anyway, the Prussians, after the Great American War, had become a nomadic people. A sad story for them. The Austrians had pushed into the Reichstag, the Berlin building of parliament. They had slaughtered everyone inside. Even the Kaiser of Prussia was not shown mercy. The French, on the other hand, advancing from the west, they had taken the German chancellor, a man named Bismarck, I believe, and killed him. Prussia, Berlin, the city, most of the Prussian cities as well, was burned. What remained of the Prussian army was mostly the stormtroopers in America and a couple of other armored units. You see, I forgot to mention one thing. The Prussians and the British had, I guess you can call it, something similar to the Industrial Revolution, but sped up. You see, they had made these designs for horseless chariots. Initially they had horses, but eventually they removed them, relying on something similar to the steam engine on a train. But you see, these horseless chariots had guns on them, artillery pieces, machine guns, troops inside shooting at the enemy, or what they called the enemy. And unfortunately, the British and Germans were the first to produce them. Our motherland is still working on how to mass produce them. The manufacturing quality is very difficult on these items. But that is besides the point. The Prussian people would become nomads wandering across Europe as mercenaries. They call themselves now the Freikorps, meaning free corps or free soldiers in their language. From what I hear, our glorious nation has hired them to patrol the lands of Lithuania as they are under communist threat. Speaking of communist threat, after Britain was taken by the French, they signed treaty after treaty that turned the British Empire into a French puppet. This will not do for the people. A revolution had occurred. A man who our intelligence only tells us name is Tom had taken over the British public's hearts and eventually had a civil war. A sad story it is when a monarchy is taken over by communists. Such a glorious empire as well. And yet nothing remains of it aside from the Canadians. But this British land, this was be destroyed by raids. You see, a man by the name of Karl Marx had visited Britain after the whole French occupation thing. He got to drinking with a man known as Tom, and he got him to lead a civil war. They overthrew their country. They kicked out the French even. These communists were worthy foes, report the French. They fought not like men, but like beasts. No mercy was shown. No honor, no pride, no sense of Christian virtue. Without monarchy, I've seen no need why Britain should still exist, but the Empire insists now that they are to be tolerated. I suppose, however, that is the way things go, is it not? Toleration of things that really should not be tolerated. For example, the Nordic countries, Norway and Sweden, united, they were a single entity, calling themselves Nordic Union. These people are atrocious. Their laws, their government, fueled with the vilest system of atheism and socialism. It must be burned. It must be destroyed at all costs. But no, the Emperor insists on keeping them here. I guarantee you one day, comrade, one day, the Roman flag will be waved across the world. A global empire. An empire bigger than anything the British held before. Doubt it as you may, we have seen the worst of mankind, and the best of it as well. And that, my dear Tavarish, is why we have gold on our side.
Well, my apologies for the terrible Russian accent. Hello everyone, Trench Officer 1970 here. This was a synopsis for The War to End All Wars, a Red Dead Redemption 2 online RP which somehow spiraled out of control into me going completely crazy with alternate history. This was 2 years of writing on me and a couple of other people's part. So, I'll give a slightly less biased explanation than Maxim Maximage did. And I guess I'll along the way be explaining why my upload schedule was so weird, as well as getting a point across of some other things that they really do need to be addressed. Okay, so quick explanation about some of the lore bits of the Altered History RP. Quick thing about it, yeah. That is not everything. There is so much more to it. It goes bloody well deep. So, if you want to see more, please do subscribe, because trust me, it is... I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I think me and my mates actually did a good job with this. As well as one other thing. I wanted to apologise for how... I guess you say how lightly I take YouTube. I don't use this platform as much as I should, and as much as I... Well, I thank all of you for giving me 60 subscribers. I don't know why you people have done this. You really should not have, but I'm truly in your debt. As well as this footage lagging is not making my case any better. Well, lads, any questions that you have about the series or what this channel is going to be in the future, I shall answer in the comments. Now, all that said, thank you for watching. Please do like, comment and subscribe.